If you like what we do here, be sure to like and subscribe. Even support us on Patreon. Now let's go. Hey everybody, how you doing? So if you were living under a frickin' rock, you probably didn't see me like frantically posting the most amazing announcement ever today in the various Discords. I've yet to post it to Twitter and all of that yet, but I'll probably announce it there with this video. So amazing how that kind of works. So the big announcement is power rankings. Now, before we dive into that specifically, a little bit of a backstory. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. All of that stuff. And as my man Dallas can attest, you know, if I tell a lie, he'll shoot me in the eye. I have been wanting to do this very thing for the very longest time. It was put on hold earlier this year because the user submitted data that we were collecting, the open play, the fabled open play data, started drying up, and for whatever reason started drying up. So it was really difficult at that time with the limited number of tournament offerings to that point to create something like this with any level of impunity. Is that the word I'm looking for? With any, we needed Moss more data to be able to make something reportedly, apparently robust. So, of course, I kind of flew over this a little bit. I grazed past it. You're gonna know who this face is. It's my man Dallas. So it's funny. I made the post. Dallas is like, "Hey, are we making a video on this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was gonna make a video explaining this thing." And he goes, "Oh, okay." Are you available? Yeah. Okay. Here we are. My bad, buddy. We do have a planned end of the year, you know, quarterly report XYZ thing in here coming in the next couple of weeks. This just came to fruition. I finally like cracked the code literally, because I'm not a coder by trade. I literally figured out how to do this thing, and was able to put something together. And of course, in my mass excitement, was like, "Hey, here we go. Here's a tool. You know, I've been waiting to do this for a long time." So you can tell I'm excited because I'm talking a lot. So to the tool. Okay. So what you're going to see here on screen that Dallas can't see, but we've already talked about this briefly, is, in fact, say hello, Dallas. I got to check my mics.
Hello.
Hey, they work.
Check, everyone.
They work.
Yeah. I'm here because I saw this and went, you know, I have some questions. Hey, Clay, I got some questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you dropping a video? Yeah, I'm dropping a video. Oh, yeah. Cool.
Well, it was one of those things. Of course, I got this up on the screen, but like the thing was, it was like mid-afternoon. I got this thing completed, kind of scrubbed it a little bit to like, okay, this is exactly what it's putting out. This is what it tells me it's putting out. You know, that sort of thing. Looked over the wife because she works right there during the day, and I'm like, "Hey, I gotta make a video tonight. Is that okay?" She's like, yeah, you know, do your thing. So this is all like kind of came together like really quickly. Okay. So what you fools are seeing on your screen is, I feel, my words, not Dallas's, I feel is the burgeoning of the next era. It's the next step into the next era of you know, analysis, data analysis. We'll never get to that point of predictive, you know, which is as much as we all want to sit there and tell you that this deck is good, this deck is good, this is trash, blah blah blah. You know, there's too many factors relative to that equation that that are meaningful. So it's difficult to tell you. Now, I can tell you that Wilson Refined Grizzly Far Traveler is the most like performative deck. Dallas has got me watching my words.
What is perform?
Yeah, Dallas has got me watching my words. So yeah, what you're looking at here on the screen, there's 3 graphs. The first one is, and Dallas is definitely going to help me mind my P's and Q's on how I explain this. This is not the top 10 tournament commanders as organized by win rate. This is not just that. This is the top 10 adjusted by win rate with above average performance. But of course, that's a title that's this long that I can't put across the top of the graph. But that's exactly what this deck is this graph is telling you. So it's the most performant commanders at present. Okay, did I get that right?
So the main thing to note is that the value that is shown on your screen next to the commander is the win. But depending on whatever the performance metric is, which I assume Clay has somewhat of an answer for, Wilson might be the 3rd highest win rate, but for whatever the performative metric is, it's trimming out those 2 that are above it. So there might be some above or in between some of these decks, but based on a separate metric, it's deciding which 10 to show you, and then it displays their win rates.
You know what? I'll make you a deal, because we've always been about transparency here. I'll post now the inputs. It'll tell you in the sheets formulation. It'll say like column A, column whatever. You guys won't know exactly what that is, but you'll be able to see by the functions that are provided how I'm getting to. I'll actually post that in the description of this video when I'm doing it. I know somewhere in there, I don't have it memorized. It says standard deviation, and then it says somewhere in there average. So it's taking an average of, or standard deviation of an average. I forget which order, but I'll post that formulation in the description of this video for complete and full transparency. Got no problem with that.
Yeah, so there is some metric that is determining the above average performance of a deck, and then out of those top 10 performing decks, sorted by their win rates, here's their win rates.
Boom, there it is. Okay, the second graph here, number of top 4 finishes, that's just a tally. It's just counting in the back-end data, which you can download and provide analysis yourself. I always make this offer, I occasionally make this offer, nobody really takes me up on it, but if you go to the statistics page on the website, halfway down, there's a link right there. You can download a copy of the data for your very own analysis. Anyway, this is a tally of number of top 4 finishes, and you can see how we've like manually annotated which decks have been in the top 4. All this does is count. Now, to the graph that you're here for, power rankings. So the way that this is working, and I wish that I've got my OBS kind of set now. And if I relaunch the, so I've got an on open trigger for to run the script, which is dumb in hindsight. I need to undo that. But what you would see is a table on the, so I have a couple of tabs that I'm using to filter the data. This one particular tab takes every commander and compares it against itself all the way across the board. So if it's played against itself or lost against itself, yada, 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 it provides a value either 1, 0, 0, 0, or 0, 1 all the way across the board. And I showed it to Dallas a few minutes ago. It goes all the way out to like FH or something. It's ridiculously wide and ridiculously long. Now what happens is in this script that aggregates this information, the first part of it, this whole process, seeks to find the natural win rate for any particular commander. I don't know why particularly I wrote a script to handle this particular portion of it, considering we report this in other parts of the website. Maybe it was just me trying to be holistic now that I'm thinking about this out loud. Needless to say, once again, we're writing out, we've written a script that calculates the natural win rate as reported in the data. That's the first part. The second part goes through that table, that aforementioned table, and then assigns a value, a weighted value, to those matches, as they go through, and then adds, I assume adds, because there's no negative values, adds that to that base win rate, which is why, as Puzzle and I talked to prior to the video, Gretchen Titchwillow has a score of 91.77 with a 33.3 overall win rate. Now, what seeks to explain that is Gretchen Titchwillow has a number, a very large number of top 4 finishes. So with those top 4 finishes, you can imagine that I suspect largely that Gretchen didn't just play in those top 4 matches, that each tournament had 3 or 4 rounds. So it's an aggregate of that for however many rounds. And that's the component that's being added to that 33.3% win rate to give the 91.77 score. I clumsily worked through that, but I'm trying to explain something that, I just kind of fumbled with today. So did I explain that adequately?
Yeah. So basically, in layman's terms, assuming you play card games, it generates a matchup chart for everything, which is something I think we can get more data and graphs out of. That would be fun to look at. So now we just have matchup charts for tournament play, which is kind of cool. And it looks at the deck's win rate, compares it to their matchup chart, and generates some sort of number trying to represent those values, which is why, once again, Gretchen is high up because it has strong win percentage on its own, above average. It's got a lot of top 4 finishes, and if you look at the other top 4 finish decks, you see TPI, Abdel, Malcolm Kedis, Malcolm Breaches, Tadiova, those all, for the most part, fairly high up on the power rankings, and those are decks that Gretchen plays against a lot because it also ends up in those top 4s. So the decks that are also showing up a lot and have strong win rates, but maybe not quite as strong, or lose more often to Gretchen, whatever it be, if Gretchen has a strong matchup into a generally strong deck, that'll boost Gretchen by a significant margin, right? So it's all those small things thrown into a black box formula, and then you get a value. So still obviously not perfect. It is relative. There are numbers you can tweak, yada yada yada, but it is a somewhat data-driven representation of the strength of a list in tournament play.
I wanna hammer on that point specifically. Over the years, anyone who's talked about data and this project and what have you has talked about. They talk about things in a way to try to discredit the data. There's not enough data points. There's too much noise. I get it. Yes, all of those things are correct. But I also throw back the question, is there a perfect data set? And the answer to that question is no. So if you're going to hammer on the project for it not being perfect, and then tell me that there's no such thing as a perfect data set, where's the middle? You know what I mean? So we operate under the presumption that, yes, the data is flawed to a certain degree, but we're not using it to make vaccines for children, right? That's not the point of this. The point of this is to give you some measure of predictability, and have an understanding that historically this type of thing happened, and if things proceed normally, then in the future it'll mirror this history. So to that I say that. Also, like, yes, this is a minimally viable product, kind of not an open beta, but like in a beta. I found a methodology that works. So what'll happen as time goes on, I mean, do you still have the same cell phone you had 5 years ago? No, you've got a new one. Why? Because it's better. It's the same technology, they just made it better. That's what this is. We're gonna make it better, but it takes time, right? So now that I beat the hell out of that horse, so there's some weaknesses, and I'm going to openly state what those weaknesses are because it's about transparency. I don't sit here and, well, Dallas is the only one that sits here and tells you whether or not you should play Gretchen or not. Oh, God. I love you, buddy.
You know what the data points to?
Exactly. Right. But like that's the thing, Dallas, does sit there and prefer, openly state his preferences for playing certain things. And I think what gets mixed up in the communication between us and, the rest of the people in the content creation world for Pauper Commander is that some people are a little bit more stringent on, like, play this, don't play that, yada, yada, yada. I'm still not telling you that, you can pick up your floor meta hot trash and put it together in a cohesive list and bring it to a tournament and have an expectation to win. I'll never tell you that. However, I think, and what I think this particular data shows, it demonstrates, is that if you do bring a cobbled together thing in the beginning and you progressively work through, play, develop, you have an opportunity, that's the word, opportunity to develop that into something that could have performance. So I feel like the Malcolms and Lore Weavers and Gretchens of the world are kind of a gimme when it comes to that concept, but specifically like Satyr Enchanter, Sphinx Summoner, TPI, Wilson Far Traveler, those are all decks that were, honed and developed and strengthened and what have you. And to give credit, the Malcolm decks as well. I know I've put my fair share of work into Malcolm, so I just said a whole lot of hot mess. What do you think about that?
I mean, I agree. There are definitely some decks that stand out to me as still like decks that are one person in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because they have some players that are amazing pilots. Obviously, you've got like Flesh Warmer and Floodgate. Bobby, but Bobby also plays Gretchen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else is on here. Lorehold Apprentice is another one.
Dragon's Rage Chandler.
Yeah, DRC. Some stuff like that. Like, you can still bring a deck and perform well with it at one event, or maybe two, or whatever it is, and be pretty high up on the power rankings, especially if you play against Gretchen and win. Things like that is another thing. Like, the anti-meta decks will be interesting to see popping up if you build a deck focused on beating Gretchen and Malcolm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your matchups, theoretically, assuming you actually win those games, will help your power ranking a lot if that's something you actually care about. Yada yada.
I mean, that type of influence on the data doesn't hurt my feelings at all, because the winner is the format, because they get a dedicated pilot working on a dedicated list and seeking to hone all of that. That seems like a win-win across the board, in my opinion. So relative to this particular offering at the moment, so I'm looking at, so we already talked about, I think we already talked about, it's a closed system. So everything that's being reported here is all of the data, all the organized play data. So everything from tournaments from last year into this year. Now, on the website, so Dallas had pointed this out earlier, now that we have this tool, right, we can seek to focus this tool into very specific arenas. So this right here will show you the complete picture. And as we do these, hint, hint, quarterly reports, there's an opportunity for us to actually go quarter by quarter and produce a power ranking based on the output of that data. Now, what's nice about this data, kind of circling back to the, I wanted to do this earlier this year, but I didn't have the opportunity to do it this year because the open play dried up. Now with Top Check GG and their terms of service, you showing up to play means data. So, I mean, I hate to put it that specifically, but I mean, it's a ready source, of data that everyone, signs when they sign up to play with Top Deck GG, they accept the fact that that API is going to be used by multiple places. So, I just had to wait for a decent chunk of data to be, accumulated before I could do anything. So one thing that I think is interesting about the current method for demonstrating a power ranking is that it does not attribute a negative value to the list. I think it would be somewhat interesting to play with the script and create an opportunity where some commanders, likely Sir Conrad, attribute somewhat of a negative value based on their demonstrated play experience, right? So I know it just knocked on a list that I really love, but it is what it is, right? So I think did I cover how it works?
I think we covered how it works pretty well.
Perfect. And then the negative portions, yeah, I think that's the major points. Once again, I cannot stress this enough. It's a work in progress. It's not, I'd say it's a 90% product. I wouldn't say it's a 99% product. But that said, it'll get us to where we're needing to go, I think. There's none of my feelings in here. The one part of this that is subjective, as Dallas pointed out, is in the top 10 tournament commanders by win rate. I was the one, it was actually Bodarn. I was the one that established the parameter that created the cutoff, right? So that selection of cutoff is the subjective portion of this. So everything else, now once again, we dig into the script, maybe there's a tweak here, tweak there, little pieces in there that could be made more wholesome and more true. Sure, that's the plan. All right. I think that's good enough to send it. What are your like thoughts on this?
I think it's interesting. To this point, though, I do want to ask you a question.
Yep.
And you can choose to cut this out of the video if it takes too long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I think it'd be fun to have in here. we have a clickbait title, obviously.
Yep.
Do you actually think that this can replace tier lists? Period.
So, long silence, long pause. So, I don't have a problem with players talking about what they think is good. Magic players do this on the regular. They do it in chat. They do it in voice call. They do it in video. This type of talk happens all the time. So where I have the problem, which is solely mine, and it could be others as well, is when if I, and maybe this is just a moral boundary that I set and self-impose. I'm never going to try to sell you on something. Even though like I can agree with you looking at this, and even before this was created, I can agree with you that Gretchen was supremely good. Everything from this year has indicated that Gretchen is a good deck, but that's as far as I go. I don't go that extra step and say Gretchen is the only thing you should be playing, right? So circling back to the beginning, the problem that I have with modern tier list is that they take that extra step and they're trying to sell you something. And there's this fine line between opinion and then trying to, negotiate that. There's a word that I'm looking for that I'm not necessarily going to come up with. As soon as I hit stop recording, it's going to be like, there it is. But yeah, I don't know. I think we can have conversations about these things in a very transparent and honest way. To sit there and call something like absolute trash. Like, I remember when people called Wilson Far Traveler trash. Legit. And now look.
Fair point.
So that's the thing. I approach this. So I would prefer that this take over the conversation regarding tier list and power rankings and stuff like that. I would prefer that because I feel like this tool creates more of an honest conversation for everyone and provides that basis for everyone to talk about their particular thing in a very open and honest way. So, did I answer that?
Yeah. I think the thing for me that is an interesting point is that I think one of the weaknesses of this power ranking system in terms of the tier list talk and all that, I think one of the weaknesses is that this is data driven, which is funny and ironic to be talking about on this channel, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I think data is great, but I do think, especially in a multiplayer format, that there is more to the strength of a deck than its win rate. And yeah, like, I know a lot of people talk about a lot of things, and this was a hot topic that I saw pop up in one of the servers recently. But, like, if my deck can attempt a win on turn 4 with 2 to 3 pieces of protection, I think that's objectively powerful, whether it wins the game or not. That's something that I value personally. So that's something not shown in the data necessarily, because obviously, how are we going to show that?
So, you said something earlier that is really critical to this particular moment. As we were looking through the list, you made a commentary of like, oh, Fleshformer, Floodgate. Immediately in your mind, you can see the pilot of that deck contributing to this particular number for what have you. So where I think this does come in handy, coming back to the point that I just tried to make about having an openness, honest, broader conversation, is for those of the people out there who are listening to our voices and seeing our faces but never really interacted with us on Discord, you're at a small disadvantage. Well, a large disadvantage, because I feel like where this will be the best served tool is actually in enfranchised, locales where people can say, okay, TPI, that's 3 people, right? That's myself, Ryan, and the guy in Philly, right? So they can look at this point of data and they can parse out, okay, I know the particulars about this because I'm enfranchised. So for the disenfranchised player, which may be your point, for the disenfranchised player, this will mean very little, right? And I guess from that perspective, it's our job, whether that be via video, via website, what have you, to provide that narrative to seek to explain. That's another reason why I put these together.
Yeah. My main point, honestly, is I still personally like tier lists. I think it's a good way to express opinions. Obviously, those opinions should not be taken as fact, but I think it's healthy for conversation. And honestly, I think it's healthy for people to make tier lists, not for the sake of other people, but for themselves, because I think it's a strong skill to help build your own strength as a card game player and comprehending the meta.
So I agree with, let me agree with you there. So like to the people who create tier lists and stuff like that, I think it's really important for people to see your analytical process. You know, as you're self-ascribing of rank and value to these very particular things, how you're narrating and describing the depth of your understanding of those particular things is important, but also realize that you could be doing it both good and poorly.
Yeah, the health of tier lists for the community and whatnot, no comment. I don't really have an opinion on that, but I do think tier lists are healthy for people to make for the sake of them making it, you know? So I do think there's still that. Learn how to analyze the meta. Use this data as a talking point in a tier list. That's a great idea. I still think they're healthy. I don't think we need to replace tier lists, but I do think this is something separate from tier lists that can be used as a talking point in tier lists, and I think that's pretty cool. And if you want to just use this and pretend it's a tier list, you can do that too, you know?
The original concept for this video, this is before I actually cracked the formulation. What I was going to do was I was going to take this top 10 list and make a tier list out of it. And then I was going to take this number of top 4 finishes and make a tier list out of it. And then I had one more idea that's escaping me at the moment. And then I was, I had one more tier list that I was going to make, and to prove a point, I was going to make a tier list from 3 separate representations of data. So the same data source, but 3 versions or representations of that data. I was going to make tier lists based on those representations. The interesting thing about that is all 3 were going to be different in what they...
I would have loved that. That would have been the greatest thing ever. I would love to see people's reactions to this tier list more than anything. I think that would be so funny.
Because if you take, was it S tier, A, B, C, D? So that the top 10 tournament commanders by win rate is like super easy. In fact, you don't even have to do it this way. You can take, which is available via the data, you can take all of the win rates for all the commanders, and you could sit there and in S tier, you could say, whatever your highest value is, I think it's in the 50s. So all your 50 plus go into the S tier, and then you have the 40s in the A, and then the 30s in the B.
People actually do that for, like, especially 1v1 formats in card games, fighting games, what be it. That is like a way that some people make tier lists, and they're always interesting to see. But once again, like, choosing what data set you're picking from and all that stuff changes those tier lists objectively. Like in fighting games, a big thing is the noob characters, right? Like, you got your grapplers that have an 80% win rate in bronze, and as soon as you hit master, they're 20% win rate. Those are always really funny. But we don't have a ranking system or anything like that for multiplayer Hopper commanders, turns out.
Yeah, and once there's so as this matures, so moving into 2025, there's a way that you can conduct an analyses that helps mature alongside the data, seeking to explain either away or explain for some of the social components of these games. That's definitely something that I'm interested in doing. I work beside a data scientist at work, so this is also another reason why Play's doing more scripting these days. much to your detriment. So yeah, I think this is a good explainer of what it is. No, more succinctly, I don't expect this to be the end-all be-all. My goal is to provide some honesty and conversation. That's it. So, all right. So in 2-ish weeks, you'll see Dallas and I again for the end of the year. It's technically Q4, but being that there's only one tournament, I think, well, one and a small one, there's not really enough for a big Q4, so we'll probably do like we did last year. Y'all know the drill. So we'll do an end of the year analyses. I'll figure out a way to constrain the input data here and do a power ranking for the year, and we'll go over that.
If you made it this far, comment hashtag Gretchen sucks, spam it in the Discord servers. If you listen to us yap for the last 45 minutes or however long it's been.
Yeah, it's been 35 minutes. It's not bad.
Not bad.
So, all right, folks, we'll see you in a couple weeks. As always, be good to yourself, be good to others, that kind of thing. Peace out.